All right, guys, welcome back to another Fortinet session. Okay. And so where we left off at, right, I gave you guys introductions to firewall policies, right? One of the major things I want you guys to remember from last night is this. Configuring a policy, right, firewall policy, it's similar to an if-then statement, okay? Conditions have to be met before an action is made. I want you guys to remember that. Conditions have to match before an action is made. Okay, so the three sections that we're going to go ahead and touch on, right? We're going to do it strictly in the lab. We're not going to look at a boring PowerPoint. I felt the need that there's no need to do that. We're going to touch on configuring firewall policies. Okay, we're going to touch on managing firewall policies. We're going to touch on best practices and troubleshooting. Okay, so within our lab, right, we have two FortiGates. We have Fortigate 1 on the left, right, and Fortigate 2 on the left, right? They both share a link, a broadcast domain on port 2, okay? And they both have a switch hanging off of their LAN side of the house, right, so to speak, off of port 3, okay? And so for this example, we have off of Fortigate 1, off of switch 3, we have my Kivia's PC, right? And we have Don's PC. And we have these PCs there for a reason because we're going to show the difference between, of course, configuring our policies, seeing how the match theory works within a firewall setting, right? Seeing how that matching, and I want you guys to really get a hold on what matching is as it relates to firewall policies, okay? So I went ahead, right, connected to the internet so we can go ahead and access the GUI, right? And so we're going to hop in and start configuring firewall policies. We're going to give some IP addresses, okay? And we are going to see all different scenarios, okay? Let's go ahead and first give some IP addresses so at least we have WAN and LAN taken care of, okay? So we're in my FortiGate, right? Version 7, of course. This is the exam that you guys are studying for. Let's go ahead and go to port 2, right? Port 2 being the port that hangs off of port 2. Let's go ahead and give it an IP address, right? My favorite subnet, right? Go, right? All it needs is a ping, right? We're going to enable that. There we go. And for the LAN side of the house, we're going to give it 10.4. We'll do it 10.10.1. We'll do that. There we go. All right. We'll enable pings. Okay. We'll enable that. We'll make sure all that's good. We're good to go. All right. So we have LAN and WAN configured. Let's do the same thing on the firewall that Don hangs off of. Okay. All right. And again, what I like to call, giving a device a host name, giving it IP addresses or what have you. This is basic IP setup, right? You're setting up the device so it can perform its function at layer 3. Okay. Let's go ahead. We are giving it IP address, same thing. Since this is the second firewall, we're just going to give it a .2. We're going to enable pings. We don't need anything else. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing here. Give it a LAN, right? .10.2.1, right? There we go. All right. We're going to enable pings, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and mark our topology, right? So we have IP addressing in place, right, at all of our layer 3 boundaries, right? And we only have 2 layer 3 boundaries. I'm sorry, we have 4 layer 3 boundaries, right? Off of these 2 firewalls. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark it. All right, so we got that broadcast domain. Let's go ahead and put that there, right? FortiGate 1 has .1, FortiGate 2 has .2. Let's go ahead and mark this. Okay. All right. This subnet lives over here. All right. And this subnet is going to live right here. There we go. Let's move this bad boy right here. Excellent. Right. So we have that, right? Now let's go ahead and give my Kivia an IP address, right? In that subnet, right? So let's first see what she has, right? We're going to verify she doesn't have an IP address. So we're going to assign one. 10.10.1.50 .55.55.0, and we're going to do 10.10.1.1. Okay, it's going to do an ARP, right? It's going to see if anybody else has this. It's going to set those settings. So if we run that command again, perfect. We have IP settings. We have that TCP IP stack on that. We're going to do the same thing for Don. Okay, we are going to go ahead, confirm, right? We have nothing there. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and configure it. Okay, put them in the same /24 and mark his gateway. It's going to do an ARP in the background, see if anybody else has it. Nobody responded. This is his IP address now. So if we go ahead and confirm that, perfect, right? So essentially, right, we have layer 3, we have layer 2. Essentially, normally as a router would work, my Kivia should be able to ping Don easily. Let's try it. So let's go ahead and clean up the CLI. Let's do that. There we go. Clean that up. And let's clean that. There we go. So if I try to ping Don, right, 10.10.2.50, I'm getting failures. If I try to ping my Kivia from Don's PC, I'm getting failures. Okay. And we're going to do continuous pings. Okay. We're just going to keep rolling, right? Because I want you guys to see within Wireshark how this looks, right? And there's a point I'm trying to make here. Let's go ahead and go on FortiGate 1. Let's go on port 3. Let's capture first on the inside interface. Why is that the case? I want to go ahead and confirm that we're actually seeing traffic hitting. Okay. Okay. So we see, right? If we pull back up her PC, we see that traffic coming from her. Let's go ahead and capture on the WAN interface. How does that look? Right? So we're going to go ahead and do that packet capture, right, on port 2. All right. All right. There's nothing. Wireshark isn't seeing anything. Let's log into FortiGate 1. Right? We have an implicit deny, right? And if you guys learned anything within your CCNA, you know within a access list, at the bottom of an access list, and by default, whenever you just create one, there is an implicit deny policy. What does it do? Right? It's denying any traffic that isn't explicitly permitted, right? And so you guys can see, you guys can go ahead and see that if you look at the byte section of my screen, right? If we go ahead and refresh this, we still have those pings going, right? We see traffic is being seen by the FortiGate, right? It's being seen, it's being seen, it's being seen, it's being denied, okay? And so the FortiGate says, from a layer 3 standpoint, I have the routes. I know these networks, right? I know what they look like, or based on my routing table, but there isn't a match within my firewall policy. Okay, I'm going to keep saying that word match, right? The only thing that it matches is the deny policy. There isn't a match for accepting or allowing traffic. There is a match for a deny, right? And what is that deny doing? It's saying implicitly deny traffic from any interface to any interface, from all sources to all destinations, always, with all services, okay? And I want you to log that traffic, okay? Firewall policies are if-then statements, okay? Right? Firewall policies are just ACLs, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and configure a firewall policy, okay? So we're gonna call this northbound, right? Right, inside out, whatever you wanna call it, right? So I'm gonna stick with northbound, right? Because it's coming from inside the network out, right? We need to identify the interface, right? Where is it coming from? It's coming from port 3, right? If you can look back at our topology, it's coming from port 3. Where is it egressing out, right? Or outgoing, right? The egress is port 2, right? That's going towards Don's network where he lives off of, right? So that's our egress, right? Is port 2. What's our source, right? We're going to select all for now, right? What's our destination? We're going to select all for now, right? What's our service? We're going to set it for all for now, right? Are we going to do natting? Yeah, let's allow it, right? We're going to maybe enable some UTMs, right? Because we spoke about UTMs, but I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off for now, right? Just want to give you guys a quick preview of how it looks when you enable it, okay? We are going to allow logging for all traffic and generating a log when a session starts. Why is that? Because we want to see as soon as a session is started, whenever a firewall gets that traffic, we want to go ahead and see it in those in logging and report, okay? And so once we do that, we're going to go ahead and click OK. Okay, there's other options, of course, we can allow capturing, but I guarantee if we go back to my Kevious PC, right, it's still failing, right? Still failing. But what will happen if we go to the packet capture, right? Do we see traffic? We do not, right? Let's go ahead and make sure there's nothing going on with our packet capture and just try to capture again, right? Because essentially we have a firewall policy that's allowing, right? That's allowing traffic to pass through these two interfaces for any service at any point in time. Okay, we have a match. All the conditions match. Okay, let's do that. Let's move this over. Okay, so nothing just yet, right? We're not seeing anything, right? Okay, all right, so let's refresh this page. Let's see if we just see anything, any bytes catch up, all right? So nothing has of yet, right? Sometimes, of course, whenever you're troubleshooting, you have to restart a session, right? So let's restart a session. Let's see what happens, right? Let's see if those values change under bytes for the northbound policy. Nothing yet. Let's go ahead and check that forward traffic, right? We're still getting, right? We're still getting denial, right? 2 seconds, right? A second ago, we're still getting policy violation. Why is that? right? Why are we getting that? Let's go ahead and take a look, right? We're seeing the source is coming from port 3, the destination is port 1, right? Why is that? What's going on, right? Even though this is a firewall, right, it is a layer 3 device as well. So we need to make sure that we configure routing as well, which is one thing I did skip over, right? Because now what all the firewall is doing is just using its best known routes right now. Okay. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we're trying to reach Don's network. We're going to go ahead and set a static route. We're going to set that next hop, 6.4.2.2. There we go. All right. So we have that set, right? Let's see if that changed anything. We see some bytes. Something changed. Let's refresh the page. Let's just make sure. Okay, those bytes are increasing. So you guys see that, right? Everything comes into play whenever you're creating those firewall policies. Okay. So we got an accept, we got a session start, but we're not getting those pings back, right? We're not getting that traffic back because if we pull up her PC, we're still getting a timeout, right? Don is still getting a timeout, right? But what's the core piece of this? We have a policy that is matching all of the conditions that we're trying to set up, right? It's coming from port 3, right? It's ingressing port 3. It's egressing port 2. Sources, we didn't specify it. We just said all. Okay, that's a match. The destination, it's all. We didn't specify it, so it's a match. Schedule is always, it's a match. The service is all, it's a match, right? So if this was a sentence and we were talking, if all these conditions are this, for any packet that reaches my firewall, then, remember I told you guys, if then statement, then perform this action, either accept or deny. Okay? Now let's go ahead and do the same thing on Don's firewall. Any questions so far?
Nope.
All right, so we have our interfaces. I'm going to create a static route for my Kivia's network, right? Right, and we're gonna put the gateway, .1, it knows it, perfect, okay, right? So now that I put the static route, it should work, right? I should be able to ping. It should not.
No,
Right?
I wouldn't think so.
It should not, right? Because this is a layer 3 device, but it's also a firewall. Okay. So even though we put in layer 3 in place, we have routing, we also need to go ahead and make sure that we take care of those, take care of that firewall policy and have a match for traffic that's coming through. Right now, there is a match for traffic coming through, but it's not doing the expected action that we would like. Okay. So we need to go ahead and configure that. All right. So we're going to go in policy and objects. We're going to go into the firewall policy section, right? And you guys can see, right? We can absolutely verify via bytes. And of course, I'll go ahead and refresh the page so we can go ahead and see some logs within login and report. And we go to forward traffic, we'll see that traffic being denied, right? Let's go ahead and take a look, right? So some different things that we're seeing here, right? I'm going to point out this. We got the source being 6.4.2.1, right? That's the other firewall. And the destination being Don's PC. We have a deny. Right? So it's getting the traffic, right? It's getting layer 3. But remember, this is a next generation firewall, right? It's targeting all those layers, right? It's not just going layer 1 through layer 3, right? This isn't an old school firewall. This is the next generation. It's looking at all those other layers within the OSI model, okay? And that's what you're configuring in your firewall policy, right? And since we have a match that says to deny and not to accept, the firewall is doing its job, but no traffic is passing, which is what we want to happen, right? That's our expected action that we want. We want traffic to be able to pass, right? So let's go ahead and fix that. We're going to create that same policy, right?
I have a question too, David.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Um, why I noticed in the logs I seen the gateway for like my Kivier's firewall.
Hmm.
W- Is it a like why is it that I see the logs and not just from her PC?
This is a good
Or
question. We're going to get to that. Give me one
okay,
moment. Okay.
okay. Yep.
All right. That's a good question. So we haven't talked about it yet. That's actually what we're going to talk about on Saturday, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
there's a tech. No. This is a good question. The technology has to, while you're seeing her outside her WAN interface off her firewalls address, is because of the technology network address translation. Okay. So her inside address is being translated to the outside address, right? And that session is being kept via a port number, right? So if you go down here in the firewall policy, right, we have matches all right here. We create our if statement, then we have our then, right? But when that match is complete, we have other actions, right? We can tell the FortiGate to do, right? We can say, hey, do we want to mask the private IP address? Because as you know, private IP addresses, right? Those are RFC 1918, right? Cannot go to the outside world. They can't traverse the internet. It's impossible, right? So we need to go ahead and mask it. One way we mask it is you can do it with NAT, right? Network address translation, to where it's going to go ahead and use that inside interface, right? And do a packet rewrite using the outside interface, right? And shoot that traffic based on that inside host. Okay. So
Yep.
that's what's set here. Okay. But that's just the mask. If we go ahead and look at those packet captures like we are going to do in a little bit, you're going to see, the source and the destination haven't changed, because they typically do not. Okay. They
Yep.
typically do not. All right. So let's go ahead. We can make sure we go ahead and left NAT, being able to go ahead and be traversed. We have all sessions set. We're not going to use any UTMs for now, right? We don't even have a license, right? We're going to generate logs when the session starts, because we want to inspect and make sure the FortiGate is doing its actual job. We want to go ahead and enable this policy, and we're going to click OK. So what I expect to happen now, right? Now that we have a northbound policy, right, is things need to start working, all right? Right? They need to start working. Let's go ahead and investigate and see, right? And these are some of the hiccups and the things you're going to see whenever you're configuring firewall policies. Give me 1 second. Let me mute myself. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so we have our northbound policy, right? Let's investigate and see what's going on, right? We set logging for a reason. Let's take a look, right? So we have session start, right? It enabled it, right? Right, but we have a violation, right? And Don, this is going towards your question, right? What you saw, right? What you're allowing, right? We're seeing here it's denying that source.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Could it be because it doesn't? I mean, but A route? Oh, I don't know.
There we go.
Oh,
There we
okay.
go. So I want you to start thinking like a network security engineer. Okay. So you're
Uh-huh.
not just thinking about security, you're thinking about networking as well. Okay. So if we
Okay.
go back to our routing table that we configured, let's look at this real quick, right? We configured the policy. We took care of the upper layers. Let's look at the routing table. We said here, if the destination is 10.10.1.0, right? Send it to here, send it to this next hop. Okay,
Which is right.
which is right. which is which is right. But do we have a destination for in our routing table for 6.4.2.0?
No,
We don't. So if we look at our rib, our routing table, we don't.
we do.
We do. So why is it
Why
not
is it not
working?
working? Right. It's
Why is it
because it's
not working?
directly connected. So we do. Why is it not working?
So this goes back to your question. What if we do this?
Oh, is it because not
Nah.
disabled? I was like, wait.
I was
Okay,
like,
then.
why is it not working? This is
Oh, so Nat has to be disabled. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess
No,
that's why
no,
you.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no, no. I
okay.
don't want you guys to think statically. You guys are
okay.
engineers, so your mind has to be even more open than that, right? We're still getting failing because I haven't restarted the session. But I want you guys to keep something in mind. Everything isn't as static as it is. This is why you guys are learning how to be network security engineers with this NSE4, right?
Mhm.
Anything is possible, anything is open. Nothing is just, oh, we just need to go ahead and enable that. Everything is not that simple.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
So how do you know when to enable it and when not to enable it?
That's a good question. That comes with time.
With
That
time.
comes that comes with time, right? And that comes with improving your experience with routing, switching, firewalling, right? That's going to come with time.
Okay. Fair
Okay.
enough.
Okay. Now, since we don't have an IPsec tunnel between these two FortiGates, I need to go ahead and create, or I should say we're going to go ahead and create a reverse policy. Then we'll start seeing that traffic happen. So essentially, we can do one of two things, right? We can create this reverse policy, enable NAT, right? And it should be fine. Or we can leave NAT off and create the reverse policy. Either way, since we don't have an IPsec tunnel, we need to create a reverse policy. So traffic that's going in can also be allowed coming back out, right?
Okay.
So luckily
Oh, so,
with version, go ahead.
oh, so you're referring to basically the egress and ingress
You got it.
interfaces. So we need
Absolutely.
for two or from port two and then vice versa. So we need a reverse policy.
Outbound. Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,
Now you guys are starting to sound like engineers. I love it. All right. Right. But this is not every environment. Remember that golden rule I told you guys. These vendors are going to let you do anything that you want to do, but you have to know the fundamentals, right? You have to know what you're doing. Okay.
oh.
All right. We'll create that policy. Everything looks clean. We enable it. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. Let's refresh the page. Let's take a look
Got
at some
hits.
logs. All right. Of course, we still got asynchronous traffic, but now we see traffic passing, right? See that being done, right? And if we go over here, We see sessions being started, right? Now we see traffic being passed. And of course, we see 0 bytes being received, right? Because of course, we need to go ahead and edit a few more settings. But I want the, hey, Christian, so we won't look at that right now. We're just focusing on firewall policies, okay? So, right? And we'll dig into this, right? And I want you guys to just see, right? Configuring firewall policies isn't a set it and forget it, right? This is some of the things that they're not going to go ahead and show you on the exam, but you have to know for the exam. Okay? Let's go ahead and get this working, get this going. So let's investigate this. Let's see, right? Are pings rolling now?
Yep.
What questions do you guys have?
Very thorough. I have a question. Right now, at least, everything makes sense.
Marquivia, you're scaring me. You're quiet.
Oh, the handoff. She's probably in the handoff at work.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So we have pings rolling. If we look at our capture, pings are rolling. We have a ping request and ping reply. Now, this is where the fun begins. Let's start to break stuff. All right.
I sound like the people at my job.
This is where the fun begins. Right? Because what we don't want to do is just say all we're letting everybody in, we're letting everybody out. We don't want to just do that, right? Because as network security engineers, you're going to be expected to be as granular as possible. Let's do that, right? So remember, firewall policies, they're basically if then statements. Okay? If we have a match for all these conditions, then perform this action. So with our if, right, our conditions, we have our source matching all, destination matching all. Let's be a little bit granular. Let's create an address object. We learned about address objects for my Kivia subnet. So let's call this LAN M1, right? We actually, yep, we're on FortiGate 1. So that's right. Let's go ahead and give it that subnet, right? For her subnet, right? Because we can't just put the raw IP address in there. We need to have an address object, okay? We're going to say any interface, right? We can go ahead and say only allow this interface for port 2, but we're going to say any to be safe. But we can be even more granular. But we're being granular with the address object, so we're okay. We're going to set that there, okay? We know our destination. We know that Markivia's PC wants to reach Don's PC, right? Don lives on the 10.10.2.0 network, right? Let's go ahead and create an address object for that, right? Because we want to be as granular as possible, right? We're going to call that LAN D1, okay? And let's go ahead and put in, right, your subnet, static route configuration, right? And you're probably thinking, okay, what does that mean, right? That means if we create this policy, right, this address object will be included in the lookup whenever the firewall policy allows traffic to pass, and it's going to look at the routing table and say, hey, okay, you can go ahead and pass it, right? So you can click that on, you can click it off. Clicking it off, it may have some side effects, which we will talk about in the NAT section, because I can better explain it there. Okay. Best practice, I like to go ahead and enable that. We're going to go ahead and add your destination, right? We're going to hit OK, right? Right? Let's do the same thing here. We can do it easily now, right? There we go. And we're going to change it here as well. Perfect. right? So we got that set, right? Let's do the same thing over here, right? So go, right? We go over here. We're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to be a little bit more granular. We're going to go ahead and create the address object from here, right? LAN D1 10.10.2.0 555.0, right? Because we got a /24, all right? And we're going to put that in place, right? We're also going to go ahead and create another one while we're here. LAN M1 10.10.1.0 55.55.0. Okay, figure that, right? And we're going to go to the next, right? We're going to go to destination and set that there. Okay. All right. And we're going to do the same thing, right? We're going to change that source to be her subnet. And we're going to change that destination to be your subnet. Now, what we should expect to happen is everything still works. Traffic still passes. Everything is fine. If we restart the session, right, we shouldn't have no problem, right? Everything looks good. Everything looks fine. If we go to forward traffic, everything is passing through. Everything looks fine, right? Now, let's break stuff. Now that we stated the actual subnets, what happens if we do this? Wow. Now we're getting timeouts. Don, let me ask you, why are we getting timeouts?
Because we changed the IP address on the subnet of the PC, but I didn't know you can, so you can change the subnet to address that's not listed on the firewall.
Oh, yes. Remember, I want you guys to think like engineers. Don't limit your mind, right, to the guardrails that you have right now. Okay? You can do anything within routing and switching. You can do anything with firewall. Okay? So you were correct with your last statement. I want you to think a little bit deeper as it relates to firewall policies.
Okay.
Why did it stop working if we're looking at these firewall policies?
Because the policy is destined to my subnet 10.10.1 and 10.10.2.
Yep.
And you changed it to .3.
Absolutely.
So it's no policy nor like a route in place.
Excellent. And you answered it beautifully like an engineer. There's no route in place, but there's also a policy that denies traffic that don't match policies, which is that implicit deny, right?
Sweet.
Okay. So if we go ahead, go on hers, right? Traffic is passing, right? We're seeing that traffic, but it's not making it to the other side. Let me go ahead and pull up her PC. We're getting timeouts. Destination host unreachable. Okay. All right. So we talked about logging. We talked about changing address objects, right, of those firewalls. Let's take a look at the GUI a little bit. right? So you can see a few things, right, as it relates to the exam, okay? So we have different ways to take a look at firewall policies. You can take a look at it via interface pair view, or you can look at it by sequence, right? By sequence is the old school way. It's like an ACL. You can take a look at it. You can also look at the interface pair view. I kind of like this. I kind of like looking at this in my day job just because it's, if I know what zone I'm looking for, I can just go ahead and look for a pair and say, okay, I know what to look for, right? I know where the issue resides, right? So it's here and there. It actually helps, right? If we had IPv6, right, we can go ahead. Let me go ahead and enable IPv6 so you can actually see it, right? As you guys saw, I had to go to feature visibility and enable that. If we go here, you see something change in the top right hand corner, didn't it? I can flip from looking at IPv6 policies or IPv4 policies. Okay, right? So you can look at your firewall policy table, right? Either IPv4, IPv6, or both. Okay, got to know that for the exam. Now, let's take a look at this, what you guys need to know for the exam. Okay, and we're gonna, we have 15 minutes left in this section. I think it's more than enough. You have the ability to go ahead and configure a traffic shaper, right? What is a shaper, right? Right? A shaper basically applies to a total bandwidth, right? To traffic, right? Based on an interface, right? You can apply it to per IP or shared interface, what have you, right? And you can configure, right? Traffic shaping policies. You can configure that there, right? Right? So you can configure all of that here, right? You would configure your policy right here, right? You can create, and you can say, hey, so out of port 2, we're only going to enable 300 megs, right? You can configure that, right? And so that'll just be a profile you configure, but then you can apply it to any policy, right? Apply it to a source, a destination, right? Per IP. You can do all those things, right? Now, what the Fortigate allows, it allows you to create 3 types of traffic shaping actual policies. 1, shared policy shaping, right? Bandwidth management for security policies. Okay. 2, per IP shaping, right? Like I told you before, bandwidth management of user IP addresses. Okay. So maybe a subnet. Maybe Christian lives off of a certain subnet with his sales team. And maybe we've seen in the last 2 months, one guy on his sales team is just watching, is tagging up our bandwidth, right, for our WAN pipe, with trying to watch HBO Max all day, watching Harry Potter, right? So we can go ahead and create a policy that says, hey, let's traffic shape it, right, for this subnet and this and the third, right? What is that? How does that sound familiar? That's exactly what we just did, similar to what we just did here. We are being as granular as possible in our if-then statement. Okay? All right? So we have different type of policies, right? And we're going to touch on them a little bit more on Saturday morning before we jump into that, because that will be a short section. But I want you guys to understand what some of this looks like. And I want you guys to practice this in your home lab as well. Okay?
So so I get that we're gonna touch on it, but just for like clarification more, you typically would use traffic shaping when you're trying to like limit bandwidth or like internet usage or something? That's when you use the shaping?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Traffic, to keep it simple, and I'm glad you asked that. Traffic shaping, bandwidth management. That's it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
All right. So we talked about the interface pair view. We talked about the sequence, right? We talked about, right, Well, I'm going to show you guys that because I don't believe, let me just double check. Okay, so it is here. Let's talk about the real-time policy status, right? So with every firewall policy that you configure, you can actually see in real time, how much hits you have for this policy, as far as how much the firewall has had an if-then statement and actually pass traffic through. This is where you see the hit count. We can see active sessions, right? We can see when it was last used. We can see when it's first used. We can see the current bandwidth. We can see the total bytes as far as traverse from this policy. Why is this important, right? You may get a call, right? You may get asked, hey, how much traffic on a 30-second scale, right? Or per day do we see traffic traversing this policy, right? You can take a look at it, right? You have your graph here, right? You can split it up to just IPv4. You can split it up to IPv6, right? You can get very granular. Let's say you hop on a Teams call and you're just troubleshooting, or you're trying to give people the lay of the land. You can actually look at it here, right? You can change it from bytes. You can change it to packets. Let's see, as far as we're almost about to hit 2,000, right? You can look at hit counts, right? So real-time policy status, you need to know what that looks like for the exam. Okay, let's go back to the policies. Okay, important concept to understand, and let me go ahead and enable this so you guys can see it. Give me one moment. There we go. There we go. All right, so what I just enabled is policy advanced options under feature visibility, right? And what this does is configure advanced options allows us to configure advanced options for policies in the GUI, right? And there's a reason why I'm doing this, right? I want to go ahead and make sure you guys understand, right? So double click on that. We see this thing called an ID. What is that? What is an ID? Now let's go ahead and put that there. All right, and let's move this to the front. There we go. So policy IDs, right? What are they, right? What they are they, and I want to make sure, and we may need to have a session on ACS. What they do is they tell the FortiGate in order how to process the firewall policies. Okay. So we see, northbound 1, we see southbound 2, right? Let's say we create a policy that says this. Oh, forgot the service. Let's go ahead and configure that. There we go. Let's take a look and see, right? Let's fix everything up, by the way. And let's fix your IP address. There we go. So we fixed your IP. Now we got pings row, right? So it's back to where it was. But we have a policy in place, right? From port 2 to port 3, and let's create a reverse, right? There we go. Let's go ahead and enable this. So what we're saying here, right, is block anything coming from port 2 to port 3. Doesn't matter what the source and the destination is. We're matching all, schedule all, and services all, right? We're denying it, and same in the reverse. If we go ahead and take a look at your traffic, I'm still able to pass through.
Yep.
So an important concept of ACLs, important concept of firewall policies that we have to understand is that firewall policies, ACLs, work in precedence of order, right? First come, first serve, right? So what that means is if we have a match on this first, it's going to pass that traffic. It's going to pass that traffic, okay? The ID, right? The policy ID just says, it's just a telltale mark of saying when this was created, right? What in order that you being the network admin, the network engineer, when you configure this, right? But if I move this, go ahead and there we go. Hover over, and I move that there. What happens? I'm seeing timeouts, right? What happens if I do this? I'm getting timeouts. First come, first serve, right? When you go into the CLI, and there's a reason why I'm showing you these policy IDs, right? Sometimes you will need to go into the CLI and edit these firewall policies, okay? See this, right? They're in order. We have 3, we have 4, we have 1, we have 2, okay? All right? So,
You move the order from the CLI?
can you move the order from the CLI?
Yeah.
That is a great question. No, you cannot.
Okay.
Okay. Remember the age-old term that I keep trying to tell you guys. There's some things you can do in the GUI, some things you can do in the CLI. You can do it in the GUI, but I'm sure you can guess what you would need to do. You would need to delete
Yeah, no.
this,
In the GUI. Yeah.
then create a new firewall policy 1. Because the firewall from the CLI is going to read it top down.
Gotcha.
You see what I mean? You
Mhm.
do it from the GUI, it's going to go ahead and make it presentable like this.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead and
One more question. Speaking on policies,
Mhm.
so like rather than like, so if I get a call and the client's like, hey, we want to block Facebook,
Mhm.
like rather than doing like some like blocking it from like the web filter or like a web rating or like something like rather than doing it from there,
Mhm.
I can use the internet, what was it, the internet service and put
The,
Facebook there
the
and
ISDB, absolutely.
do a deny policy. Okay.
Yep. So we're gonna go over that on Saturday, right? Because we're coming up on time. We're
Okay.
gonna go over that. Okay. And so remember that question for Saturday, okay?
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Mhm.
Christian, any questions about configuring and managing firewall policies? Okay. Mikey, but she's probably still doing the handoff.
Oh no, I'm back. Actually, I've been back.
Okay, cool. Any questions?
No, not as far as policies. No, I don't.
Okay, excellent. All right, guys, I will end the session here. We're going to keep the same topology, and Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, I'll see you guys there.
Alrighty, thanks, David. Bye.
All right,
guys.
guys.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.